I didn't look back. Not at the house we built together, not at the life I was walking away from. The only thing I took was what I needed: clothes, money, a few important documents. Everything else left behind like a bad memory. Driving through the city that night, my mind raced through every scenario. Should I confront Olivia? Demand answers? Give her a chance to explain? But I already knew the truth. Her messages, the way she whispered to Daniel, the lies she so effortlessly told, it was enough. Stopping at a cheap motel outside town, I tossed my bag onto the bed and sat at the edge, gripping my phone. My fingers hovered over her number, but I couldn't bring myself to call. What would I even say? That I knew? That I had seen it all? Would she cry? Beg? Apologize? I didn't care. Instead, I shut the phone off, lay back, and stared at the cracked ceiling. Sleep refused to come, but exhaustion eventually won. By the time morning arrived, my decision had solidified. Disappear. Start over. I withdrew everything from our joint accounts, leaving her with nothing but debt and questions. It wasn't just revenge, it was survival. If I stayed, if I let her lies consume me, I'd never move on. A week later, I was in another state. A new name, a different story. No one knew me, no one asked questions. I found work managing a small logistics firm, decent pay, steady hours, nothing complicated. Exactly what I needed. Days turned into months. The pain dulled, though it never fully faded. I kept expecting Olivia to track me down, to send messages begging for forgiveness. But nothing ever came. No calls, no emails, no signs of regret. Maybe that hurt the most. That she didn't even try. She had Daniel. What did she need me for? I told myself it didn't matter. That I had won. But at night, when the world quieted, I still heard her voice in my head. Lying, deceiving, loving me while giving herself to another. And I hated that a part of me still missed her. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the DNA results. The paper trembled in my grip as reality crashed down, drowning me in confusion, disbelief, and something dangerously close to fear. 6 years. 6 years of silence, of believing I had walked away from everything, only to have my past shove itself back into my life with undeniable proof. The twins weren't just hers. They were mine. I forced myself to look at them again. Identical faces, wide brown eyes, Olivia's eyes, but beneath that, traces of me. My jawline. My unruly dark hair. Small details I had overlooked in my initial shock. How do I know you didn't fake this? The words tasted bitter. She didn't flinch. I can take another test if you want. I have nothing to hide. The twins fidgeted, sensing the tension. One clung to her arm while the other kept glancing between us. I ran a hand down my face. Why now? Why after all this time? She hesitated. I told you. I searched for you, but you vanished. I gave up. Then last month, I found out. She exhaled shakily. I don't have much time left. Her words replayed in my head, but they refused to settle. This doesn't make sense. My voice hardened. You betrayed me. With my best friend. And now, after 6 years, you show up with children I never knew existed, asking me to be a father. She swallowed hard. I deserve your anger. But this isn't about me. I laughed coldly. That's rich coming from you. She winced. I know. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I have no choice. No choice. I leaned forward. You had choices, Olivia. You had plenty of them. You chose Daniel over me. You chose to cheat. You chose to lie. But now that you're running out of time, suddenly I exist again. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. You're right. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't deserve your help. I don't deserve anything from you. Then why come here? She turned to the twins, smoothing their hair. Because they do. I looked at them again, really looked this time. Their small hands, their innocent faces. They had no idea who I was. To them, I was just a stranger. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me recognized them too. They need a father, she continued. They need someone when I'm gone. I stared at her, heart pounding. And Daniel? Where the hell is he in all this? A sharp breath left her lips. Dead. The word hung between us, unexpected and heavy. I frowned. What? He died 2 years ago. Car accident. For a moment, my mind went blank. Daniel, the man who had taken everything from me, gone. I had imagined confronting him so many times, demanding answers, throwing punches, maybe even worse. But now there was nothing. Just emptiness. You loved him, I muttered, unsure if it was a statement or an accusation. Her expression darkened. No. I thought I did, but I was wrong. I scoffed. That's convenient. She wiped her eyes. I made mistakes, but I paid for them. And I'll keep paying until the day I die. But they didn't do anything wrong. The twins shifted uncomfortably, glancing up at her. They didn't fully understand what was happening, but they could sense the weight of the conversation. I clenched my fists, trying to fight the war inside my head. I don't know how to do this. My voice was barely audible. She reached into her bag, pulling out a thick folder. Everything you need to know is in here. Medical records, school details, emergency contacts. She hesitated before adding, their names are Leo and Max. Leo and Max. My sons. I stared at the folder, heart hammering against my ribs. I just need to know, she whispered. Will you take them? I couldn't answer. The words refused to come. My entire body felt numb, as if I had been dropped into an unfamiliar world where reality twisted beyond recognition. Leo and Max. My sons. I clenched my fists, my gaze bouncing between the folder and the two innocent faces staring back at me. They had no idea who I was. To them, I was just a stranger their mother had dragged into a room. Yet something deep inside me whispered that I couldn't walk away. But how could I stay? Olivia's condition didn't change what she had done. She had still betrayed me, still chosen Daniel over me, still destroyed everything we had built. Now, after 6 years of silence, she wanted me to step into the role of a father? You're asking too much, I finally muttered, gripping the edge of my desk. She exhaled shakily. I know. I studied her. She looked exhausted, thinner than I remembered. The fire that once defined her had dimmed, replaced by something fragile, something desperate. I didn't want to care. I wanted to hold on to my anger, to throw her past choices back in her face, but the presence of 2 small boys changed everything. I need time, I said. Olivia nodded. I understand. The conversation ended awkwardly. She left me with the folder, promising to call in a few days. As she walked away, Leo turned back, glancing at me before gripping his mother's hand tightly. That night, I sat in my dimly lit apartment, staring at the documents in front of me. School records, vaccination reports, legal papers declaring Olivia as their sole guardian. Now, that responsibility was falling onto me. I poured a drink, letting the burn settle in my throat as I tried to process everything. A million thoughts clashed in my head: regret, guilt, resentment. Part of me wanted to say no, to send them away and pretend none of this was happening. But another part of me knew the truth. They were mine. And I couldn't ignore that. Days passed in a blur. Olivia didn't call, but I knew she would. The weight of her request loomed over me, suffocating every moment of my day. I barely ate. Sleep evaded me. My mind kept circling the same question. Could I be a father? The thought terrified me. I had spent 6 years avoiding attachments, rebuilding my life on my own terms. Now, suddenly, I was expected to step into a role I had never prepared for. Then, one evening, my phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something inside me forced my hand. I picked up. Yeah. Her voice was weak. I'm at the hospital. My grip on the phone tightened. What happened? She hesitated. It's time. Silence stretched between us. I need you to come, she whispered. I didn't respond right away. My mind screamed at me to walk away, to let her deal with the consequences of her choices. But my heart whispered something else. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. The drive to the hospital was a blur. My thoughts churned like a storm, each passing minute filling me with doubt, fear, and a strange sense of inevitability. What was I walking into? Olivia's voice had been soft, almost pleading. What if it was too late? What if I was making a mistake, showing up after everything she had done? But no matter how hard I tried to resist, the image of the twins, their innocent faces, their unspoken need, kept pushing me forward. They were mine, in ways I couldn't deny. I wasn't sure if I was doing this for Olivia or for them, but I couldn't turn my back now. The hospital was sterile, its coldness only amplifying the uncertainty that gnawed at me. I found her in a small room, hooked up to an 4, her face pale and drawn. She barely seemed to notice when I entered, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Olivia," I said softly, taking a step closer. She turned her head slightly, offering a faint smile. "You came." "I don't know what else to do," I admitted, my voice quieter than I intended. "What's going on?" Her eyes fluttered shut for a moment. "The cancer, it's spreading faster than they thought." She paused, as if collecting her thoughts. "I'm not going to make it, and I don't want them to be alone." My throat tightened. This wasn't how I thought any of this would go. I had expected anger, confrontation, maybe even resentment. But here she was, vulnerable, stripped of the power she once wielded over me. And despite everything, despite all the pain and betrayal, I felt something shift inside me, a quiet pull toward responsibility. "Olivia, I didn't know what to say. How do you confront the past while staring at the fragile future of children who didn't even know you? I don't know if I can do this." "You don't have to be perfect," she whispered, a sad smile playing on her lips. "Just be there for them. Be the father they need." I sat beside her, the weight of her words heavy on my chest. For the first time since I'd learned about the twins, I truly felt the enormity of what lay ahead. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be days of doubt, days of struggle, and there would be times I wanted to give up. But for them, for Leo and Max, I had to try. "I will," I said quietly, more to myself than to her. "I'll try. I won't let them down." Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached for my hand, her grip weak but steady. "Thank you," she breathed, and it was the first genuine thank you she had ever given me. I stayed with her that night, sitting in silence, the soft beeping of machines the only sound between us. The next few days were a blur of hospital rooms, paperwork, and quiet moments shared with Olivia. She wasn't the woman I remembered, but she was still a mother who loved her children, and that love seemed to radiate from her in every word, every gesture. By the time she passed away, I had already begun to take steps toward the kind of father I wasn't sure I could be. But I knew one thing for certain: I couldn't walk away again. The twins, Leo and Max, were too young to understand everything that had happened, but they knew one thing: they were loved. And that was all I could give them for now. The days that followed were not easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when I wanted to throw in the towel and retreat back into the life I had built for myself. But then I would look at them, look into their eyes, and I would remember the promise I made to their mother. I couldn't change the past. I couldn't undo the mistakes that had been made. But I could give them a future, a better one. Slowly, I found my rhythm. Leo and Max, with their endless questions and boundless energy, helped me find joy in the chaos. They were my responsibility now, my legacy, and every time I saw their smiles, every time they called me Dad, I realized that maybe I wasn't walking away from something, but instead, walking toward something new. I wouldn't ever forget the pain Olivia caused, but I learned to forgive her. She was human, flawed, and at the end of it all, she had only wanted what was best for her children. And in the end, I was there to give them that, just as she had hoped. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, not by any means. But as I tucked Leo and Max into bed each night, their small hands clutching mine, I realized it was the kind of ending that I could live with. And in that quiet peace, I knew I had made the right choice.